That's behind us. Today I'm going to get back to what my channel's about, and I'm going to talk about some of my family and some of my family history. I think probably the name of this episode is going to be Jeanetta Bailey. Jeanetta Bailey was my first cousin. She was one of Marvin and Edith Smith's children. Edith Smith's maiden name was Mooneyham. She was one of my dad's sisters. So I'm going to talk about that family today. We're in the Sojourner room, and you're looking at the kind of thing that you're used to seeing from the Hard Times guy. Right up here is a little display cabinet that I made sitting on top of that hanging wall cupboard, and on the left side of that is a commemorative plate from the state of Arkansas. It's probably not worth more than $1 or $2, but the reason I got it up there is I was born in Arkansas. I just got that up there for times like this when I want to talk about Arkansas and things from Arkansas. And that, what you're looking at there is a little cabinet that I made, and I made it to house those cotton bowls, and those cotton bowls came from Arkansas. In fact, they came from right across the driveway into Jeanetta and Glenn Bailey's carport. I was down there one time a few years ago, and cotton was about ready to be picked. It popped out of the bowls like that, and there was a whole field of it there belonging to Glenn and Jeanetta. And I went over there with my pocket knife and cut me off a little bit and brought it home with me. And I made a little box to put it in, and there it is. I'm talking about family today again. And I'm talking about, I think for the sake of a definition for what I'm talking about, I'm going to say first cousins would cover the most of it. And when I started thinking about this a week or so ago, it was because one of my first cousins had passed on. She died. And the first thing I thought of when I got the news that she had died was I'm going to write not a letter, but a kind of a message to them as a group about what they mean to me and what their family meant to me. Well, I didn't do it. I mean, I still haven't done it. I'm not going to do it now. I'm making this video. It's what I'm doing instead. But I didn't get it done in the manner that I wanted to get it done. Some other things were going on. I had so many thoughts I couldn't get them collected and put them together like I wanted to. Uncle Marvin had a lot of things to do besides entertain me. And when we went to Arkansas to visit, I can't think of any time that Uncle Marvin, when I was a child, went out of his way to entertain me, even to speak to me sometimes. He was a farmer and always had plenty to do, had over his lifetime 10 children, and he raised that family farming rented ground. And it's still amazing to me. That family is amazing to me, and how they did things and how they accomplished raising all those children. But Jeanetta was one of his children. And Uncle Marvin, what I started to say about him was, I got to know him a lot better and a lot more after I was an adult and went back to Arkansas as an adult, and now he's an adult and I'm an adult. We have things in common. We can now have adult discussions and conversations. So I learned a lot more about him in later years than I ever knew as a child. And the same thing is true with cousins. We'll try not to get off to the side anymore. We'll come back to cousins. First cousins, and I had 10 of them in the Smith family. And the one of those 10 that was my age, I think, was maybe the 7th of the 10. I could count them and let you know that. But they, Norma, Barbara, Charles, and Jeanetta, the one who recently passed, I think they were the 4 oldest, and I think Norma was the oldest. I don't know whether it's Barbara and Charles, but I think Jeanetta was probably 4th, and then Eileen was probably 5th, Jimmy was 6th, Lynn was 7th. So yes, the one that was my age was the 7th of that group of kids. And then Larry and Margaret Ann and Kenneth were younger than me. In fact, Kenneth was a baby when I was just married and my wife was pregnant. We went to Arkansas and Kenneth was a baby in diapers, sitting out in the where the gray water drain come out in the yard, playing with his toys and among the chicken droppings and whatever. And he was he was a mess, and my wife commented about what he looked like and what he was doing, and no kid of hers would ever look like that. And we still laugh about that because some kids of hers did look like that and exceeded that in some of the disgusting things that they got in and got on them. But it's neither here nor there. Lynn was my age, and he was the 7th of Aunt Edith's kids. I think Norma was the oldest, and Norma, quite frankly, was more like an aunt to me than she was a cousin. She was far enough older than me that she was a grown woman, and I was just a little boy in my first remembrance of her. She was a grown woman who was married and had children of her own that were slightly younger than me, but I was just a little kid, and she was a woman. She wasn't like a cousin. Barbara was the same way. Norma's, I always think of them as Norma and Bobby, her husband's name. Barbara and Bug, her husband's name. You say Bug, I say, yeah, Bug. I don't even know what his name was. I just called him, everybody I knew called him Bug, and so he was Bug. Then there was Jeanetta and Glenn, and she was married too. In my first remembrance of Jeanetta, she was married to Glenn Bailey. Then there was Eileen and Maurice, I think, and they weren't married. I can remember when they weren't married, but she's the first one of Aunt Edith's kids that I can, as they ascend in order, that I remember. Eileen was enough older than me that we weren't close as cousins. She had a boyfriend. She was about to get married. I was just a little snot-nosed kid running around there. But as we got older and grew, and then we began to have those adult relationships, a lot of that changes. And so, and I'm going to talk about Jeanetta today, but that happens with all our cousins. on my mother's side, I had the same situation where I had Larry Bob probably was the oldest of my first cousins on my mother's side, and then Stella. And those two were enough older than me that they weren't like cousins. They were like aunts and uncles. Actually, I didn't even know Larry Bob well enough for to even be that. But then the rest of my mother's siblings' children were all within the realm of my age and my brothers and sisters' age, to where we had that first cousin relationship where your first cousins, you know them all, they're kids when you were kids, and quite frankly, in our family, your first cousins were among your best friends as you were growing up. And it was true on mother's side, and it was true on dad's side. And when we went to Arkansas, we generally stayed with Aunt Edith and Uncle Marvin. And thinking back on that, it doesn't make any sense to me at all that we did that. They had all them kids. They were in what you might as well call a 4-room house. I guess if you call that built-on back porch a room, maybe that house had 5 rooms, but didn't even have running water until 1965. The only reason I can come up with that we stayed there instead of somewhere else was because of the kids. They had kids our age. So we stayed there and mooched off them, and when we should have been going to somewhere else. But at any rate, Jeanetta was among those cousins that was enough older than me that I didn't. In fact, the relationship I had with her and Glenn, her husband, was one like they were aunts and uncles. I remember one time that I was in Arkansas, and I don't remember how it happened, but Glenn was in charge of me for a day. And it was being with Glenn was much like when you went to be with Uncle Wesley. He was an adult, but he just took it upon himself to entertain you. And I think the day I was with him, I think he spent a full day working. I might have been at work with him, and it seems to me like it was a place in Lake City that sold Alice Chalmers tractors. I might be wrong, but it was right on the St. Francis River, and much of the day was spent running back and forth between fishing at the river and pestering Glenn to buy some peanuts and Dr. Pepper or orange soda and cheese crackers. And of course, he was accommodating. We were little kids. He was an adult. He was making sure that we stayed out of trouble and stayed entertained. It's much like that when you spent time with Uncle Wesley, either at the farm or at Herget, or I remember a time I spent at the police station in Jonesboro. I think the police station and the fire station were kind of together, from what I can remember, and it was like you just had to run to the place. And Uncle Wesley was, he put a roll of nickels in the drawer in his desk, and whatever I needed, just went and got them nickels and got out of the vending machines. But that's the difference between Jeanetta and me in age accounted for my relationship with her. And one of my fondest memories of her was when we were both adults. Both had grandkids. It was, I don't know how many years ago it was, but there's a little glass case over there that I made. It's got 2 open cotton bolls in it. If you haven't already seen them in this video, you will see them. And I cut them out of their cotton field on this one particular visit to Arkansas that I'm thinking about. And I wanted to go to Herget. And I mentioned it around. She undertook to take me and Betty and I to Herget, Arkansas. That's Hergett. If you Google that, I doubt it. You might not even be able to find it, because I was surprised when we went there. She said there ain't nothing there but a sign, and I told Betty if that sign had been an old sign, I'd have stole it. I'd have cut it down and took it home with me. And she thinks I wouldn't have. She thinks I was kidding, but I wasn't kidding. But when we got there, it wasn't an old sign. It was a fairly recent sign. Said Herget on green board about that long and on a metal post. And it just said Herget. And you could stand there by it and look down the road, and you could see the back of the other one down there on the highway. It said Herget. And that's all there was. There wasn't nothing else there. Which wasn't what I remembered as a child, but I'm probably going to do a video just about Herget one of these days, because I got lots of childhood memories of that place, the old store that was there, the farm that Uncle Wesley had there, the Mexican houses back behind that farm, the house there. But Jeanetta she took me, and we went to Herget, and we talked about old times, and she took me to Jonesboro, and we visited Jimmy Donald. He wasn't in good shape then. I can't remember whether he was home or in a nursing home, but he was, that was a good visit. And we just had I think we went over Bay, and we might have went, we might even went to Lunsford, where I was born. I don't remember all the places that we went, but Jeanetta just took it upon herself to be my tour guide that day and go about anywhere I wanted to and talk about anything I wanted to talk about. And I had a really good time with her. I think the last time we were there, when we were going to Texas, I missed seeing her because I don't think I want to even get into that. They were feuding. There was a feud in their family, and if there's anything that I don't want to talk about, it's a family feud. That kind of thing breaks my heart, and I was glad to hear that issue got resolved before she died. But people were avoiding one another when Betty and I were through there the last time, and so I didn't get to see Jeanetta then. But I have fond memories of her. I have fond memories of all Annie's children, really. Norma, and somehow, and I can't tell you how, but through her there was a place in northern Arkansas called Raven Den Springs, and went there a couple of times. And Barbara and her husband at the time, she's got a different husband now, his name's Virgil, but when she was a young woman, she was, I said, married to a man named Bug. And Bug, for those of you who know Dog Moon, he happens to be a fictional character that is in my videos sometimes. Dog Moon is patterned in part after Bug. My memories of Barbara's husband Bug are the probably 70% of the basis for a character that appears in my videos from time to time named Dog Moon. Eileen. Don't know how much older Eileen is than me, but she, when I first noticed her, I was a Mickey Mouse Club fan, and I thought she looked like Annette Funicello, and I had a crush on Annette Funicello. So, of course, Eileen was, like I said, she had a boyfriend with a red '61 Chevrolet Impala convertible, and I was a 11, 12-year-old kid. She didn't, I didn't exist to her, and she only existed to me because of that, her boyfriend in that convertible, and the fact that I thought she looked a little bit like Annette Funicello. And Charles is another one that was enough older than me that I didn't really know him until we were adults. I mean, I knew who he was, and when he showed up at times that we were there, that same time that Maurice had a '61 Chevrolet, red '61 Chevrolet. Charles had a yellow '57 Chevrolet, and it was one of them, I think it's one of them power pack Chevys that had 2 4s or 3 2-barrel carburetors on it. That's the kind of thing you remember when you were that age. And of course Jimmy Doyle, they called him, because we had a Jimmy Donald that was Uncle Wesley's boy. And Lynn and Larry, and of those, probably Larry was Kurt's age, 2 years younger than me, and I see more of him, talk to him more than any of them nowadays. But I just have wonderful memories of that whole family. And I think the thing I love about them the most is if I wrote a definition for, like, a dictionary of family and what family meant and what family means and how families are and how families should be in my mind, that family would be the embodiment of that definition. And the letter I intended to write them, I was going to attempt to put that in words, and I couldn't. I still can't. What I just said, probably about as close as I could come. And you'll hear more about them in future videos. I got some Uncle Marvin stories that I'm going to tell. And I got some Aunt Edith stories that I'm going to tell too. Most of them are from Betty's perspective. I'm Luke, the Hard Times guy. We'll get on with this again another day, either in the stories about the people I just mentioned, or some of these characters come up again and when I start talking about Hargett, Arkansas. And until then, subscribe to my channel, watch my videos, and have a good day.